So August of 2017, there was going to be a total solar eclipse in America. And there was. It turned out it happened. It wasn't like a weird prediction. And so I heard about it several months before, and I thought, that sounds interesting. I'm kind of a weird nerdy type. Most people wouldn't really care about a total solar eclipse, but I thought this would be kind of cool. I've seen partial solar eclipses. I'd never seen a total one, and I thought, that's something I could check off my list. Plus, it was happening in August, and I had kids, and we wouldn't be missing school or anything. And the path of totality, the geographic area that you can witness the total solar eclipse, was not that far away. It was going to be passing through Tennessee, and I go there all the time. It's like a 7-hour drive. It's easy. So all of these reasons, I was like, I'm going to try for this, right? I'm going to try to get the kids for a road trip to go see totality. So this was a few months before the event. So I went to my husband, Bart, and I explained all of my reasons for wanting to go see it. And after I was done pleading my case, he said, "Yeah, all right, that sounds interesting. I'll think about it." If you're not married to my husband, and I hope you're not, because legal issues, let me translate. What that meant was, I will immediately put it out of my head and never think about it again unless you continuously remind me. And my husband, I love him so much, it's not only that he's not good at making plans, he is like the black hole of plan making. Like, any plans I try to make just get sucked into this gravitational pull and like disappear forever unless I go to warp speed. We're talking about science here, right? And so I really wanted to do this eclipse thing, so I kept bringing it up. I kept bringing it up for months, and then a couple weeks before the eclipse, I was thinking, yeah, probably no one else in America cares about this niche little thing like a total solar eclipse, so I'm not really that worried about it, but we should probably start making plans. And he wasn't ready yet. And then a week before, the eclipse was on a Monday. The Monday before, I went to Bart and I said, "So it's a week away. Are we gonna do this?" And he said, I think I'll check at work. I'll see what happens." And if you're not married to my husband, and I hope you're not, that means we're not doing it. It's gone. Forget about it. So I did. I was like, all right, I'm giving up on this whole thing. You know what? There's going to be a partial solar eclipse because the sun's really far up, so you can see like that kind of thing from all over America. It's amazing. I'll just take the kids to DC, and we'll go look at the partial solar eclipse. How much of a difference really could a partial and a total solar eclipse be? So anyway, I was fine. I was resigned. But then on Thursday, Thursday night after work, Bart came home and said, "Okay, I got Monday off. We can go to Tennessee." And I was like, okay, so I guess I'll just make that happen then. Great. So Friday, I started looking around at like where the path of totality was going to be. I knew it was going to be in Tennessee somewhere, but Tennessee's kind of a big state. So, I looked it up, and it turned out that it was going to be in several places, but in and around, not in Knoxville, but around Knoxville. And Knoxville's really convenient. It's 7-hour drive. It's a beautiful city. And we couldn't see it from Knoxville, but I figured that would be a good jumping off point. And I really had no better idea of what to do and didn't have time to plan anything. So I booked a hotel for Knoxville for Saturday and Sunday and figured by Monday we'd have the whole thing figured out. So that's what we did. We drove to Knoxville. We took Emma was 5 years old at the time. Ethan was 2.5. And we drove down to Knoxville. We had a great time hanging out there. And on Sunday, at some point, I again did some research. I looked it up. I tried to figure out where we should go to witness this solar eclipse. And there was a town not far away, about 45 minutes out of Knoxville, called Sweetwater, Tennessee, and they were having a festival, which was so adorable. They thought they were going to get enough people interested in this event that they were having a whole festival built around it. And I thought, well, that's convenient. It's not far away. And then, The eclipse was at noon. We would just hit the road after the eclipse was over, be home by dinner time, and then, get to work on Tuesday. So Monday morning, that's what we did. We threw the kids in the car. We drove to Sweetwater, Tennessee. We got there a couple hours before the eclipse was going to happen. And Sweetwater was a really sweet town. It's sort of surrounded by farms, and then it's a 3-stop sign sort of a town. There's a train station there, and then a big open field, which is their sort of main square. And they had this festival. They had bouncy castles and choo-choo train rides and vendors selling food and t-shirts and that type of thing, which was great because I had a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. I needed to entertain them because we had a couple hours to kill. Plus, this was Tennessee in August, going close to noon, so that meant it was about 2,000 degrees Celsius and 350% humidity. Yeah, it was hot. So we bought the kids festival passes, and Emma pretty much spent all of her time bouncing between the 2 bouncy castles, and Ethan spent his whole time on the choo-choo train ride. It was like a tractor pulled choo-choo train, and it was unlimited rides, and it was just him. Like, there were no other kids around. So the guy would go around in a big circle, and then he'd stop, and then like Ethan would be like, "Can I go again?" And the guy would just look at me like, "Please say no, please say no." And I was like, "Yeah, ride all you want, just have at it." So I left him with the guy for 2 hours, and I left Emma on the bouncy castle, and then I basically became a lemonade mule. Because it was so disgustingly hot. I was trying to keep us all from dying and melting into the ground. So I just kept going to the frozen lemonade stand and bringing them to one child after another, and also to Bart, who was busy setting up a camera to take pictures. And the time passed. And then about a half an hour before the total solar eclipse, a siren went off, like the town alarm system went off. And that was the signal to cease all activity, so that we would be forced, or I guess it was really very lovely. It was so that we would have the opportunity to stop and enjoy the main event, to look up at the sky and experience this total solar eclipse. But I had a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old, and it was 1,000 degrees, so I had to now entertain them. And if you don't know, a solar eclipse is like the most boring event ever. If you try to actually watch it, it takes like 35 minutes for it basically looks like a big white ball in the sky, and then after a few minutes there's a little dark spot, and then like 10 minutes later there's a bigger dark. It takes forever. So I sat the kids down on our picnic blanket, and I figured, all right, let's have some STEM educational moment. And I explained to them the way, an eclipse works. Like, this is what we're going to be looking at. And that filled up, 15 seconds. And then I didn't know what to do with the rest of the time. So I told the kids just to lay down and stare at the sun. And Ethan was like, "But you told us never to look at the sun." And I was like, "Look at the sun." I gave them the glasses. They weren't going to go blind. It was fine. But then for the next like half an hour or whatever, I just had to keep kicking them to make sure that they stayed awake and didn't pass out from fatigue or heat stroke. And that's what we did. We looked up at the sun, and we looked at the shadows on the ground. That was fun. And Bart got set up to take pictures. And then it happened. Totality achieved. And it was like the world changed. All around me, the 3,000 or so other people who made their way into Sweetwater, they started whooping and hollering, and I started whooping and hollering. I didn't mean to. It just kind of came out of me. It was this like animal instinct, this reaction to the world changing. It went from day to night to dusk, and when the human hollering stopped, you could hear the crickets chirping because they thought it was night too, and the dogs howling, and it got cooler. It went from insanely hot to just really, really hot. And it was amazing. And I looked down at the kids, and they were dutifully staring up at the sun. They were still awake, and Bart was dutifully snapping photos. He got some really amazing pictures, including my favorite one. It's of well, there's the corona, the ring around this black spot in the center, and just off to the side, you can see the International Space Station. And you've seen pictures. I'd seen pictures. I knew what this was, and yet something about being there in person, witnessing this monumental event, it just made me feel so small. Like like I was just this tiny little dot on this big planet in this huge, incomprehensible universe. And then 2.5 minutes later, it was over. The moon moved just a little bit and broke that perfect circle, and it was as if the spell was broken. There was still another 30 minutes for the moon to get out of the way, but as soon as that corona was broken, it was over. Everyone around me started picking up their stuff and their kids and throwing them in the car, and we picked up our stuff and our kids and we threw them in the car, and we started to drive along with the 3,000 other people in Sweetwater. We started to drive so we could get home by dinner, and we hit a wall of traffic. I mean, it took us hours to get to 81, which was like 2 miles away. And then we got on 81 and we just sat there. What should have been a 7-hour drive, well, 10 hours later, we were still well south of the Tennessee-Virginia border. And I was on the phone calling every hotel I could think to call to try to find a place to sleep. And apparently other people had assumed that other people would be wanting to witness this event because they had already booked up every freaking hotel in Tennessee. Finally, though, this lady who helped me, she called other hotels for me, and she found us one that was like 45 minutes in the wrong direction. It was a golf spa and resort. It was $300 for the night, which is more than I have ever spent in a hotel in my life. But I took it. And the only thing I remember about that hotel is that there was no free breakfast. And on Tuesday, we got back in the car, heading north, and we drove for the next 13 hours. And the kids were great. They were, I don't know if it was a combination of heat stroke and dehydration, but they pretty much just slept the whole way. When they were awake, I nudged them and I asked them, what did they think about this experience? What did they remember about this amazing thing we saw? And hands down, Ethan absolutely loved the choo-choo train. And to this day, the only thing Emma remembers about the whole event was that she got to climb on this really awesome bounty castle. So we spent over 20 hours in the car, spread over 2 days, driving one way, and spent hundreds of dollars just to witness this event that took 2.5 minutes. This event that I could have watched on YouTube. So was it worth it? Well, I will tell you that after we got home safely and got the kids back to daycare, I looked it up and I marked on our calendar April 8th, 2024, which is when the path of totality will once again be in America within grasp. And any day now, I am going to convince Bart that we need to make plans.